So imagine this beginning on a morning that looks almost unreal in its calm. It's October 22nd, 2025, in the South China Sea, and the horizon is painted in soft gold and pale blue. The ocean is flat, quiet, and deceptively peaceful, the kind of calm that makes you forget how dangerous this region can be. On board the USS Higgins, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, everything feels routine. Sailors are settled into their watch rotations, coffee cups sit near consoles, and the steady hum of radar and navigation systems fills the bridge. For the crew, this is just another day at sea, following procedures they've practiced hundreds of times. The USS Higgins is conducting what the U.S. Navy officially calls a freedom of navigation operation. In simple terms, this means sailing through waters that the United States considers international, to demonstrate that no single country has the right to control them. These operations are deliberately calm and predictable. The ship maintains a steady course and speed, avoids provocative maneuvers, and follows international maritime law to the letter. The goal is not confrontation, but presence, quietly reinforcing the idea that these sea lanes remain open to all. But the location matters. The ship is operating near Scarborough Shoal, a small ring of coral and rock that barely breaks the surface of the sea. On a map, it might look insignificant. In reality, it is one of the most sensitive flashpoints in the entire region. China claims it as sovereign territory, calling it Huangyandao. The Philippines claims it as part of its exclusive economic zone, a claim backed by an international tribunal ruling in 2016. The United States doesn't claim it at all, but insists that the surrounding waters are international and must remain accessible. Three perspectives, one reef, and no room for misunderstanding. At first, nothing seems out of the ordinary. The radar picture is clean, the sea lanes are quiet, and the destroyer moves smoothly through the water. This sense of normalcy is exactly how most of these missions begin. They are designed to be boring, uneventful, and unremarkable. That boredom is a feature, not a flaw. But then, without warning, the radar operator notices something that doesn't fit the pattern. New contacts appear on the screen. They are closing fast. There's no AIS signal, no civilian identification, no routine commercial profile. Just speed, direction, and intent. In that moment, the mood on the bridge changes instantly. Conversations stop. Posture straightens. The captain steps closer to the display, eyes narrowing as the radar returns sharpen. One contact becomes two. Their vectors cut directly across the Higgins' projected course. This is no coincidence. This is deliberate movement. The calm of the morning doesn't disappear outside. The sea remains glassy and still, but inside the ship, everyone understands that the situation has shifted. This is the critical point where routine patrols stop feeling routine. The crew knows exactly where they are and why that matters. In the South China Sea, unidentified military contacts are never neutral. Every approach carries political weight, strategic messaging, and the risk of miscalculation. The sailors aboard the Higgins have trained for this scenario repeatedly, but training doesn't remove the reality that they are now operating in close proximity to forces that view this transit very differently. What makes this moment especially dangerous is the ambiguity. No one has fired a shot. No one has made a threat yet. But the absence of identification and the rapid closing speed send a clear signal. Someone is watching, someone is reacting, and someone intends to challenge this passage. In waters like these, ambiguity itself becomes a weapon. It forces decisions, tests discipline, and narrows the margin for error. At this early stage, the encounter is still quiet, still controlled. But the crew understands something important has already happened. The mission has crossed from theoretical geopolitics into real-world tension. Steel hulls, human judgment, and national pride are now moving toward the same point in the ocean. What began as a calm morning transit is on the verge of becoming a test, not just of navigation, but of resolve, restraint, and the fragile balance that keeps this region from sliding into open conflict. Then the situation tightens, and it does so fast. What had been distant radar contacts suddenly resolve into something unmistakable. Two Chinese warships emerge on the horizon, their gray hulls cutting sharply through the calm sea. These are not patrol boats or Coast Guard vessels. They are Type 052D guided missile destroyers, large, modern surface combatants built for air defense, anti-ship warfare, and power projection. Their presence alone changes the tone of the encounter. This is no longer observation from a distance. This is interception. As the ships close in, the radio comes alive. A firm, accented voice breaks through the static, clear and deliberate. The message is short and uncompromising. The USS Higgins is accused of entering Chinese waters and is ordered to leave immediately. There is no emotion in the words, no raised volume, but the meaning is unmistakable. This is an assertion of authority, broadcast not just to the American ship, but to anyone who might later hear the recording. The bridge of the Higgins goes quiet as the transmission ends. Outside, the sea remains calm. Inside, every sailor understands that this moment has crossed into something far more serious. What follows is not chaos, but compression. The Chinese destroyers increase speed and begin maneuvering into position. Their bows throw white water as they cut across the Higgins track, moving with purpose rather than curiosity. Distance closes rapidly, from miles to thousands of yards, to distances that make experienced sailors uneasy. These ships are not drifting randomly. They are positioning themselves carefully, matching course and speed, sliding into parallel paths that leave little room for error. This is where the danger truly begins. Modern destroyers displace thousands of tons of steel and move at high speed. At close range, even a small misjudgment, a delayed helm order, an unexpected wave, a slight engine surge, can lead to collision. And collisions between warships don't stay local. They escalate politically, instantly, regardless of intent. Everyone on board knows that at these distances, the sea itself becomes unforgiving. Yet despite the proximity, something important does not happen. No missiles are armed. No gun mounts swivel into firing position. No targeting radars lock on fully. The weapons remain quiet, but that silence is not reassuring. In many ways, it makes the situation more tense. This is pressure applied without force, intimidation without overt violence. It's a test designed to see who will blink first. From the outside, it might look like nothing more than ships sailing close together. But inside the Higgins, the pressure is constant and intense. Radar screens glow with tracking data. Bearings and speeds are called out and logged. Every movement of the Chinese ships is analyzed in real time. The crew knows that they are being watched just as closely. Cameras on the Chinese decks are trained on the American destroyer, documenting every angle, every maneuver. This encounter is being recorded on both sides, not just for tactical awareness, but for political messaging later. At this point, the confrontation stops being about firepower. Both sides know exactly what the other is capable of. The USS Higgins carries enough weapons to defend itself many times over. The Chinese destroyers are equally formidable. But no one wants to be the first to turn capability into action. Instead, the struggle shifts to discipline and control. Who maintains their course? Who keeps their speed steady? Who avoids sudden moves that could be interpreted as weakness, or worse, as hostility? This is naval brinkmanship at its most precise. Every decision is calculated, not in seconds, but in fractions of seconds. The distance between the ships is measured in yards, but the consequences of a mistake would stretch across capitals and continents. The officers on the bridge understand that their job is not to win a fight, but to prevent one while still accomplishing the mission. In that narrow space between two moving warships, nerve becomes the defining factor. The crews are trained to hold steady under pressure, to trust procedures, and to resist instinctive reactions. Control, not aggression, is the real measure of strength here. And as the Chinese destroyers continue to close in, the message is clear. This encounter is no longer a routine challenge. It is a deliberate test of resolve, played out on calm water with absolutely no room for error. What truly defines this encounter isn't the presence of Chinese warships or the closeness of their maneuvers. It's the way the USS Higgins responds to the pressure. At no point does the crew act impulsively or emotionally. Instead, they fall back on something far more powerful than aggression: procedure. Every sailor on board knows the rules for situations like this, and those rules exist for one reason: to keep control when everything around you is trying to force a reaction. The Higgins does not speed up, slow down, or alter course in a way that could be interpreted as either a challenge or a retreat. She remains predictable. In naval operations, predictability is not weakness, it is stability. By holding steady, the ship removes ambiguity and reduces the chance that the opposing side misreads intent. The bridge team monitors helm inputs down to single-degree adjustments, ensuring that every movement is smooth, deliberate, and defensible under international law. Inside the Combat Information Center, discipline becomes almost mechanical. Radar sweeps are continuous, and every contact is tracked, classified, and logged. Timestamps are precise. Bearings, speeds, and distances are recorded automatically and manually cross-checked. Radio transmissions, both sent and received, are captured in full. Nothing is ignored. Nothing is assumed. This level of documentation serves two purposes. First, it protects the crew in the moment by creating a clear operational picture. Second, it creates an undeniable record for later review, where perception can matter as much as reality. When Chinese radar briefly paints the USS Higgins, a signal that could indicate targeting or simply testing, the response is telling. There is no dramatic announcement, no sudden shift in posture. The electronic warfare team confirms the signal, identifies its characteristics, and reports it calmly up the chain. The captain acknowledges it, orders it logged, and nothing more. No countermeasures are activated. No weapons are brought to readiness beyond standard defensive posture. The message is clear: awareness without escalation. This restraint is intentional. In these encounters, overreaction can be just as dangerous as aggression. Activating countermeasures or changing posture too abruptly could be misinterpreted as preparation for combat. The crew understands that the real objective is not to win the encounter, but to deny the other side any justification to escalate. Every calm response narrows the space for misunderstanding. At the same time, restraint does not mean vulnerability. The USS Higgins is fully capable of defending itself at a moment's notice. Its Aegis combat system tracks all nearby contacts continuously, ready to shift from monitoring to engagement in seconds if hostile intent becomes unmistakable. The crew's confidence comes from knowing that capability exists, even if it remains invisible. Strength, in this context, lies in not needing to display it. What unfolds is a silent test, one that doesn't make headlines in the moment, but carries enormous weight. It's a test of training, of leadership, and of institutional discipline. Every sailor understands that their behavior may later be analyzed by commanders, intelligence agencies, and policymakers. More importantly, it may be used to shape future encounters. Professionalism under pressure sets precedent. This predictability also frustrates attempts at provocation. Without sudden movements or emotional reactions to exploit, the opposing ships are left with limited options. The USS Higgins neither retreats nor advances. She simply continues, forcing the encounter to remain exactly what it is, a challenge without escalation. In doing so, the crew shifts control away from proximity and toward process. There is also a psychological dimension at play. Maintaining calm under close pressure sends its own message. It signals confidence, not arrogance, but assurance. It tells the opposing side that intimidation alone will not change behavior. That message is delivered without words, without threats, and without spectacle. It's delivered through consistency. In the end, this is where the real power of modern naval operations lies. Not in who has the bigger weapons, but in who can operate closest to the edge without losing control. The USS Higgins demonstrates that discipline, documentation, and restraint are not passive choices. They are active tools, carefully applied to prevent a dangerous situation from becoming an irreversible one. By refusing to overreact, the crew transforms a volatile confrontation into a controlled interaction. And in waters as contested as the South China Sea, that level of professionalism may be the most important deterrent of all. Eventually, without any dramatic announcement or visible signal, the pressure begins to ease. The Chinese destroyers gradually reduce speed, their wakes widening as they drift farther from the USS Higgins. On radar, the once tight contacts start to open range, sliding back toward the horizon. For the crew on board, this is the quiet confirmation that the most dangerous phase has passed. No collision, no escalation, no weapons fired. The ocean looks calm again, almost indifferent, as if nothing unusual ever happened. Soon after, the encounter moves from the sea into the realm where these moments are truly decided: politics and messaging. Both governments release statements that sound measured and professional, but every word is carefully chosen. Beijing announces that its naval forces monitored, warned, and expelled a U.S. warship that had entered Chinese territorial waters. The language is firm and confident, designed for domestic audiences, reinforcing the idea of control and sovereignty. In Washington, the Pentagon responds with equal precision, stating that the USS Higgins conducted a lawful and routine freedom of navigation operation in accordance with international law, and that the interaction was safe and professional. Two versions of the same event, each claiming success without acknowledging the other's authority. On paper, it's labeled a routine encounter. No incident, no escalation, mission complete. But that label doesn't tell the full story. Anyone who understands naval operations knows how thin the margin was. Ships of that size operating within a few hundred yards of each other, at speed, under political pressure, is not routine in any meaningful sense. It's controlled risk. Risk that is accepted because both sides believe the alternative, backing down completely, carries its own long-term consequences. What this moment really reveals is how fragile the balance in the South China Sea has become. This isn't about one reef or one patrol. It's about a pattern that's been building for years. The United States continues to sail through these waters to demonstrate that international sea lanes remain open. China responds by showing that it will challenge any presence it sees as undermining its claims. Neither side wants war. Both sides want to avoid being seen as weak. That tension creates encounters like this, calculated, restrained, but always one mistake away from disaster. These patrols are designed to send signals, not start fights. They're meant to reassure allies, deter rivals, and reinforce legal positions. But signaling only works when everyone involved maintains perfect discipline. The closer the ships operate, the more that discipline is tested, not just by human judgment, but by mechanical limits, weather, and chance. A sudden engine fault, a misheard radio call, a helmsman correcting a second too late. Any one of those could turn a controlled standoff into an international crisis within minutes. What makes this even more concerning is that these encounters are becoming more frequent, not less. Each one adds precedent. Each one pushes boundaries slightly closer. The fact that this patrol occurred near Scarborough Shoal, a location already loaded with historical disputes and legal rulings, only amplifies its significance. For the Philippines, watching from the sidelines, it's a reminder that its security is tied to these movements. For regional nations, it's proof that great power competition is no longer abstract. It's happening in real time, in shared waters. From the perspective of the sailors on the Higgins, this encounter becomes another entry in the ship's log. Data is archived. Radar recordings are analyzed. Transmissions are reviewed. Professionally, it's handled as expected. But personally, everyone on board understands what they were part of. They weren't just sailing a ship. They were standing on the edge of a geopolitical fault line, where restraint mattered more than strength. And that's where the larger question lingers. How long can moments like this remain controlled? How many times can rival navies press this close, testing nerves and precision, without something going wrong? History shows that major conflicts often don't begin with intent. They begin with accidents, miscalculations, and assumptions made under pressure. For now, the sea remains open. The patrol ends without violence. Diplomacy absorbs the tension, at least temporarily. But beneath the calm surface of the South China Sea, the contest continues. As ships keep sailing, claims remain unresolved, and signals keep being sent, the line between routine and crisis grows thinner with every pass. The real uncertainty isn't